So where am I at? I have now fabricated the initial motor mount, and I went and got some polycarbonate instead of having wood underneath it. So I'll do that. And then I'm gonna make a compression cage around this because the batteries swell. These are all 3.2 volt, 100 amp hour batteries. So they come in packs of 4. So I finally got enough now that I have enough batteries for the entire 100 amp 72 volts, which is what I need to power the controller and to power the motor, and the charger and the BMS all need that many 72 volts to charge in order for them to work optimally and to actually keep the life of the battery up high. So just like any vehicle, you want to maintenance it, you want to use the proper specifications so that your fuel lasts a really long time. These should last about 10 years. I expect I'll change them sooner than that. 10 years is kind of an optimal thing, but I'm guessing that battery technology is going to change in the next 10 years, and they'll get lighter and they'll get more, and I'll be able to actually get more amp hours, which means runtime, into this same compartment eventually. So crossing my fingers on that, but we're going forward now. I'm super excited, so I'm just going to start working. My plan right now is to actually cut the dash and make it mountable to the framework that'll hold the batteries that lifts in and out, and then all of the controls and everything will be mounted behind the dashboard. It'll still look like an old tractor, but it'll have the controls behind here, and then it'll have my meters and gauging and all that stuff that I need for electricity to work up here. But this whole piece, instead of being attached to the tractor, I'm going to cut it at a certain spot where it still mounts to the tractor down below, but the top piece actually is part of the battery pack, so this whole thing will lift off and I can drop it into the other tractor when I want to use the other tractor. I'll have one component, one modular component that'll have all the batteries, all the controls, all the electronics, the battery management system, all in one thing, and I'll have to figure out how I'm going to lift that with pick points and all that, but I'll weld up a cage, put it all together, tighten them down, plug it in, and fire it up. That's the idea, at least. So my next piece of the pie is figuring out how I'm going to cut this dash and how it's going to mount. The only thing now that I have to figure out is that single undermount battery, which is going to go connected to this. I guess it's just going to connect right to this frame. Oh shit, that's going to be easy, kind of, I think. Ha! Don't say that. Don't say that ever. Let's see, what do we got here? So that'll be in. So we'll have to figure out how to mount that. But shoot, it can mount kind of anywhere. You can just do a direct mount like that even. And I just have to figure out how to mount it in such a way that it all stays as one piece when I lift it up. And then I got enough room for 2 more. I figured it out. I figured out 3 batteries. That is so rad. It's a whole lot of hassle and running wires that I don't need to run now, which is freaking awesome. All right, so the things I have to think about are how I'm going to mount, if I cut the dash, how I'm going to mount that to this. So it kind of feels like, and the only reason I can't do an edge to edge is because the actual frame of the tractor is this distance, and then the sheet metal has a slight bend in it, so it goes up like this, and that's what creates that hood. So that sheet metal, the hood top is this far apart. This is the actual frame bottom, which is where everything that needs weight is mounted to. So with that in mind, I kind of have to have this subframe the way it is, and then maybe I need to, in that case I can't, because then that gets in the way of how it sits. I think I actually have to come out. I guess it would be on this side. Maybe I can do like this. Just have, oh, wait a minute, what does that do though? No, that fucks it all up. Okay, can't do that. All right, so you see this issue I'm having right here. This is the frame I was just like looking at. You see this distance right here between the sheet metal and the actual new frame here. That's how the, and then it fits to the inside here of that sheet metal right there. So, and then my controls and everything mount up underneath here. Basically, I got my controls that are gonna go across here, and I'll have my meter, I'll have my contactor, everything that has to mount inside here. I got my throttle. That'll all mount underneath the dash there. And then, right there is where it'll butt. So I think I have to cut it here. If I cut it in a line here, all the way across from here to here, here to here, and then a straight line out like this. Then the structure is this lower piece here that attaches to the body. This is like really thick sheet metal. And then the hood, oh yeah, it's almost like it was meant to be, it was a two-piecer originally. Oh no, that's how it folded. Man, sheet metal is cool. Look at this, it's like all these cuts. These little cuts and folds and everything. It's like how it was originally, but I could just follow that line. I might even be able to separate that. Save myself a... That would be cool. If I could separate that, if I could separate these two pieces, then they would pocket together really nice still. And I would be able to do like some kind of wing nut or something. Probably can't reach a wing nut. Well, anyways, I could figure out some kind of mounting scenario if I can get those separated. I'll go experiment on the other one, see what happens. All right, so that's what I'm working on now. Trying to figure out the subframe, how to detach the dash. The plan here, remember, is to detach the dash and mount it to the battery bank so that the battery bank, the controls, the battery management system is all one unit that lifts out of the tractor. And then I can roll my other tractor under and drop it in. Or I can move it over and drop it in. So that's the plan. Check this out, it's got the original felt on it. This must have come off a beauty. It's got the original felt on it. That's keeping it from making a loud clang sound when it closes. And all the decals are in pretty darn good shape. Gonna go for it. That's what I have all these extra pieces for. Fabricate. Take a risk. Take a risk. Let's get one. Oh yeah, look at that. Freed it right up. Before you all cringe, these are really old and they're purposefully being used for this project, so. No, I don't think that chisels should be used this way, but this is not my wood chisel. This is now my metal chisel. It's gonna work. It's gonna freaking work. It's very exciting when things work. Learned over the last couple of years working on Power Kings and fabricating in general, you just have to take a minute and think about it. So that's what I'm trying to do, and I did, and look at that. I think it solved my problem for me on how I was gonna mount it back once I lift it off. I figured out there's these weld points here that you couldn't see because they had spot welded it and then sanded it down, and it was a really tight fit. And the reason why I figured that out is because I'm going to actually turn this into 2 pieces rather than a single piece, because of the way I want the components to lift out with the batteries. So that said, I'm gonna cut this. I finally looked at it and thought about it and hemmed and hawed and tried to figure all of this out. And so now I'm gonna take this sheet metal and I'm gonna make a cut along the dash line here, separating the top from the bottom. The bottom is the part that mounts to the tractor, and that also mounts the hood to that. So it needs to be separated because the controls are gonna mount to the top, and that needs to be connected to the battery. So it's gonna be a modular battery and controls setup, and the motor itself will be mounted to the tractor. All right, so that's my plan right now. Nothing like starting a project in the middle of the evening without a beer. So I went and got beer so I could have a beer. I love little steel place in Portland, Standard Steel. I get all these like little pieces, $1, $2, $3, all cut offs from big, huge, giant project people have done, cut up there. So they have this cool little side shop, and it's perfect for this kind of thing where I'm like screwing around, trying to figure out, I don't want to spend a ton of money on steel, trying to figure things out, and this is the right lengths for this project, so it's really great. All right, let's get to it. Safety first. Oh, my Power King friends are so sad at me right now. I'm sorry, guys, but that's why I got these off of one of you guys out there in Pennsylvania. I ordered a couple because this is my project. What are you gonna do? This thing is gonna be not in a dump anymore, and it's gonna be on a new electric tractor. So it's actually, life is pretty rad. I'm sure there's fab guys out there who are like, oh God, what are you doing? Why are you doing it that way? I don't know. That's how I do it. Yay, look at that. It's probably real hot. The reason I had to cut it at all is because this piece actually bolts to the clutch housing, and it holds the clutch pressure plate, the foot pedal, and the housing together. So where the bearing is and all that stuff is all compressed here. And so, and then this also is dual purpose for holding the tin for the hood on. And I'm trying to keep the original look of the 1975 tractor. So this has to stay because it bolts in there, and then the hood bolts to here on each side. So this piece has to stay living with the tractor. And this piece is now going to fly with the battery. Very exciting. Now we go over here and we swallow some beer. All right, so you saw me yesterday cut the dash. This is the mounting part that mounts the tractor hood here to the body. And so I cut it in half right along this line here, and separated it here off the hood. And so as you can see, this piece kind of goes like that. Generally speaking, that's about what it looks like, how it fits. So, whoops. So that's about how that goes. We'll take that off, and what I'm going to do here now is make a little lip right here with this piece of flat bar. Just going to tack weld it on there, make sure it works, and then the idea is that as I lift it on, it'll drop onto there, and then I'll drill a little hole and have a real small bolt through there that bolts the dash to there, and then I'll also use these existing holes here. Those are the old welds. I'll put a bolt through there, use 1 or 2 of those holes to hold the dash on, and then once that's in place, I'll be able to figure out how my weld is going to work to join this piece to the battery box piece. So that's what I'm working on today. And I'm just using a little Lincoln Electric wire feeder here. So again, I'm just going to do a couple little spot welds just to make sure that this is easy for me to cut if I don't like how it fits. So I'm just going to spot weld it in probably 2 places. And then once I decide it works over there, I'll probably just spot weld it for today, and then that way I can mess with it, and if I need to do any adjustments, then I'll do a final bead on it when I'm all kind of ready to wrap up this mounting project. So. That ought to do it. Okay, so now we're moved over here to the tractor. My little welded piece is now on the back side of this. You can't really see from where you're at, but then I've got 2 bolts here that go through where I penetrated through those welds yesterday. And now I have this pretty slick way to actually pull the dash off and it'll allow me to actually look inside at the batteries and stuff. It seems like, though, the batteries are probably too tall. Let's see here. Imagine that'll be sitting up even a little more. Yeah, so I'm probably not going to be able to have much access into that. So now the question I'm having is do I mount my electronics in such a way that this dash is attached maybe with bolts to the subframe, but the subframe still supports it. And then these little bolts here are just fastening to get it to the frame of the tractor itself. All right, so I've welded up these 2 little fiddly bits here. This is gonna be my angle that I then attach my other piece to. So cooled off a little bit. I tossed them in some water, but so the idea here is going to be that it sits like that with a bolt hole. Let's see if you can see that. Can you see that? So the idea is it'll sit right there like that, and it'll bolt to the dash, and then that'll connect, but this will be welded to the subframe over here. So hoping to like go from the subframe there, across, weld into that point, then it comes up and it hooks over the top with a little wing nut or something that holds the dash in place, but then it's still removable. So So now I've finished up welding my fiddly bits here. So this little piece here is kind of a custom little bracket that's going to go onto the down here onto the custom mount here. So I'll show you down here what we got going on here. So I've got the battery mount that lands on the hogshead and the clutch housing, and then all that. It has all that support underneath it that's mounted to the frame. And then back here towards the back, we've got, these are bolted straight down to the frame. And so I'm just gonna rock this guy up into this position, and I marked it here. And so what the idea is the hood will actually be attached to this. So I'll be able to mount it like that. And it's just clearing. So if I want to ever unbolt the hood and remove that, or the dash, and remove that from the battery box, I can get into the electronics to make sure, you know, if I got a loose connection or something like that. So that's the idea here with this. Ooh, that paint got on fire. I'd say that's pretty solid now. Yep. Nice big ugly weld. My specialty. So I'll just let that cool off, and I'm going to flip you around here so you can look at it. But as you can see here, the bracket is now welded here, and this one over here, and then move this welding blanket out of the way. So now you can watch how it goes down. So if I go back here, see it goes this, bam, clicks right into place. It's just gonna lift off, and I'm just gonna bolt it in position in there. Super slick. Okay, so you know, we got this kind of sorted out. It's cooling down. I'm starting to think about how I'm gonna mount that single battery underneath that we were talking about yesterday a little bit. That single 3.2 volt 100 amp hour, the only one I can't fit inside of the top portion, is going to mount underneath. And then it'll start with, not sure if that'll be the most, I don't know how I'm going to make that work. But anyways, that's going to go, it's going to run bus lines up and connect into these this battery bank that's up here. Yeah, so that's how that's going to work. I am just in the shop today working on some aluminum. I got this piece of aluminum. I'm going to build a little battery box for the EV tractor batteries before all of my wiring gets here. I'm trying to get my final fabrication stuff done. So it's back there and ready to go. All like my dry fits are done. I've got the subframe welded up. I had a couple ideas that I decided not to go with the poly platform to sit on, and decided I'm gonna make an actual aluminum half box so they all sit in it and are tight enough, and then I can still tighten them down with either hose clamp style or the two bars with thread on each side, thread rod on each side, so I can tighten it down. And what that does is keep the batteries together from bouncing around, or the cells, to create the 72 volt battery. And also, because of the way they all bust together, those connectors jiggle and wobble, and it'll actually break a cell eventually if you don't have them in a position where they won't swell too much. And then they also can swell from battery usage, so that keeps them kind of all together. So anyway, that's what I'm doing. I'm gonna bust it out here real quick, cut a couple of more pieces, and then I'm gonna weld it up with my new little aluminum spool gun that I got. Been wanting to try it out. I've had this function on this welder forever to do aluminum to a really thin degree. It's not like a really big welder, but it's perfect for this project. So let's get to it. Ouch! Don't touch the hot stuff without gloves on. It's trying to be so good too. All right, here we go. This is my first time I've ever welded any aluminum before, and it's pretty darn ugly. But it's gonna work. It's gonna hold the batteries together, and they won't get a whole lot of flex, but there'll be some, but they'll also have the support of the other pressure. So this is just going to be more to keep them all together. I'm pretty happy with that for a first shot at it. Could clean this up a lot, but I noticed that aluminum burns through thin aluminum very quickly. So I think it's worth it to learn a new skill anytime I get a chance to on the farm, because this is not something that being able to make boxes and stuff out of aluminum, toolboxes, I could see a lot of uses for having my welding, so for my aluminum welding. So cool, I'm glad I bought the gun. I'm glad it worked out all right. And just need to do a little bit of touch up with the grinder, but otherwise it looks pretty good. I'm gonna grab some batteries and see if they fit in the direction I'm worried about. Because if it's too tight, I might just have a new toolbox. Nope, it's not. It's perfect. Beautiful. Now that's going to keep them all together. There still is flex in it, which is the thing you're really trying to avoid. But again, this is just going to be a containment thing this time around. So cool. It works. Yes, it works. And I have this little distance here because I figured I could either make a cap for it. I want to be able to wire things, and I don't want wires to come down and touch, make the aluminum hot. So anyway, it'll look pretty slick in there once I've got it cleaned up. A little ugly, but what do you do? Cool. All right, well, this is how it fits in here. Ooh, yeah, it's gonna fit just right. couple bolts to it. Kind of funny, it sits at a cockeyed angle, but I think that's going to be a beauty. Cool. Feel like I got lots of new skills now.